So FNB Namibia is deeply concerned about the growing wave of fraudulent activities and criminal tactics targeting its customers. As these criminals continue to devise increasingly aggressive methods, FNB Namibia is committed to protecting its clients' accounts and financial security. We want to stand united against crime. So dear valued members of the media, we've invited you here today to share with you how we are standing united against crime and fraud, and to answer your questions related to any recent incidences that you would have heard about regarding our clients that have been victims of crime. And we have a cross-section of representatives from FNB Namibia here today, experts in their areas of responsibilities, who are going to go through a Q&A, and then we'll open up the floor to you. So joining me on the panel this morning for our little chat, we have on my far left, Rodney Forbes, who is the Chief Operating Officer at FNB Namibia. And then sitting next to him, we have Nangula Kaluma, who is the CEO of FNB Namibia Retail. And then right next to me over here, Johan Du Plessis, he is the Chief Risk Officer at FNB Namibia. Welcome. Thank you for coming to chat with us. We appreciate it. Everybody on our panel has got extremely jam-packed schedules, so we really do appreciate them making the time, but it is an indication of how valuable you are to this conversation. Our first question this morning: there is a growing concern around criminal activities targeting bank account holders. Can you tell us more about this issue and how it is affecting our customers? And our very first question, specifically talking about the actions that FNB is taking to ensure that customers' funds are safe and secure, considering these threats. And my first question is going to Rodney. Oh, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. The first question was for Nangula. No. Sorry about
that. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you all for joining us here today. I think it's really important that we do have an open conversation. Some of you, we've had conversations some time ago in the past, and we're looking forward to being able to answer the questions, clarify. So fraud has become a serious and growing threat, particularly in cases where criminals use high-pressure tactics to coerce customers into sharing sensitive information, such as their card details, passwords, usernames, one-time PINs. And these criminals often create a false sense of urgency, threatening harm, or something is going to go wrong, terribly wrong, if the customer doesn't comply immediately. They create a false sense of urgency, and that throws people off and unknowingly, not deliberately, but oftentimes information is then shared, but also under coercion it does happen. So we're deeply concerned by the toll that this is taking, not only on the financial safety of our customers, but also on their trust in the banking system. At FNB, our commitment to safeguarding our customers' funds and personal information is our top priority. As you will hear today, we're actively working to address these threats.
Thank you very much, Nangula. Let's talk specifically about more recent cases. We've been reading stories in the media, and we want to understand a little bit about what the investigations have established.
Great, thank you. I guess the one that appeared on the weekend in the media, that is part of our ongoing investigations. I think many of you have seen what was published in the media this morning, that is sharing a lot more information about it. But I think when it relates to the bank, I can assure you that the bank acted professionally and in line with the conduct expected from the bank. When you read the detail in the media, you would understand that I think the activity happened outside the bank, but in terms of the bank controls, I can tell you the controls of the bank are strong and robust and are working exactly as intended.
Super, thank you very much, Johan. So now, Rodney, my question to you is, what actions is FNB taking to ensure customer funds are safe and secure, considering these threats?
I think from an internal perspective, the assurance that we can provide is that we put security as the highest priority around our systems, customers' data, and authentication points to identify customers. We do quite significant investment in this particular regard to ensure that we safeguard customer information and their money. So therefore, what we actively doing is we ensure that there is some robust measures around our systems and information. Whether it is two-factor authentication, where we require a customer to actually authenticate them twice when they do interact with the bank, whether that is through online banking, whether it's through the FNB app, whether it's the use of their specific card. That is specifically what we're focusing on. And then we always also make sure that whenever there is data that we transmit, that we ensure that that particular data is end-to-end encrypted, that it does not necessarily, move from one point to another point where it can easily be read. It is really, using the basis of actually encrypting the specific data. We undertake, timelessly and very, very regularly, we undertake specific scans of our environment. And these particular scans in our environment is aimed at ensuring that we check whether our systems, are indeed robust. Whenever these particular scans are undertaken, where we do see that there is some areas that is of concern because, we need to upgrade, we need to update security patches, that is done at an immediate instance to ensure that that vulnerability, is addressed. And we do this on a daily basis, both internally. We also have specific specialists that support us, externally to actually also check, whether our systems are indeed robust. And then we also undertake very regular assessments where we actually get third parties in to come and do some assessments for us in order to actually check whether we have missed something. In this particular work that we have done, the comfort that we have is that we align with the required standards of what is expected of a bank. We are being put under scrutiny by, our external auditors, we are being put under scrutiny by our regulators, and we are being put under scrutiny by our board. And that particular engagement model ensures that we keep the highest and strongest security measures around our systems, customers' information, etc.
Super, thank you very much. My next question goes to Johan again. Crime is a growing issue, not just at FNB, but across the banking industry, across the world. That's what we're seeing. How does FNB view this in the wider context? And what steps are being taken as part of the broader industry efforts to combat crime and fraud?
Yes, so absolutely agree that crime and fraud is a growing concern. Deloitte recently published a document where they surveyed banks across the world, and across the world all the banks are reporting that crime is on the increase. But for Namibia, it is not only banks that can fight crime and fraud. We need to come together as an industry, educate our clients, and work with police enforcement. So that is what we've committed to, and we are resourced for that appropriately. And I guess from a FNB point of view, what our clients can expect is a lot more communication, a lot more invites to engage with the bank, and that we would like to share how to protect yourself. We started with that last year where we invited commercial and corporate clients and the specific publications in newspapers as well. So I strongly believe that the industry and the regulators need to come together to form a united front. There are in South Africa some examples of how the industry came together and formed a SABRIC, and our regulators in Namibia are keen that we form a similar body, and we are partnering with them to do that.
Fantastic. Then Gula, my next question goes to you, and that is, are there any tips that you would give to customers to help them protect themselves from these kinds of threats?
Yeah, I guess it's almost a repetition of, or it's the other end of what I opened with, which is to take, there's some simple, crucial steps, and unfortunately people, and it's not related only to banking, but often don't always take the steps around having strong, unique passwords. Don't have the same password across multiple profiles, banking, non-banking, any login details. Really have a system for how you can keep them securely safe. But don't use the same passwords, and don't use easy things that people can guess quite quickly. Make it difficult. Don't share information over the phone or in online communication. If you don't know who it is that you're communicating with, don't share. And in fact, I watched something last night on generative AI and how advanced it can be at this point that someone can call you and you might think it's your sister, your brother, your partner, your mother. And one of the things I learned yesterday is that we're definitely going to have a passcode in our family when we phone one another, because it can sound like and look like somebody that you actually know. I would want to say, fortunately, I think we're not quite there yet, but crime follows the trends globally. So it's really, really important to pause before you share information, and especially when someone says something has happened, we're calling from the bank, and this is what we see. Pause to just sense check whether am I really, is this the case? Maybe actually go on your profile to check if whatever said transaction is happening has happened. I mean, that might be a very practical one that one can take in the moment. Don't share your card PIN. Protect your CVV, just like you do your most personal medical information, your most personal family information. Be very, very vigilant about holding that information. And also often, if somebody's offering you something that sounds too good to be true, unfortunately, it usually is. And it's just such an unfortunate situation that criminals have really found effective ways to monger on fear. They're leveraging fear, they create fear. And it's just, it results in very, very unfortunate outcomes for customers. Criminals are constantly looking for victims. It's the business that they're in. And then there's one other point around bank accounts. If somebody offers you money to open a bank account, a legitimate bank account, please do not go into a bank and open a bank account. Don't do it, because if you don't know, and we can unpack a little bit more now, but when that happens, if someone promises you some kind of reward for opening a bank account, you open that bank account and hand access over to them. It is illegal. And guess what? You are actually participating in the kind of fraud that we are seeing, because the way that it works is using a whole lot of those bank accounts. They're real bank accounts, they're real human beings, present themselves with ID in branch, verified. And I mean, that is what it is. But I then hand it over to Rodney and say, okay, here, oh, and by the way, I've gotten a bunch of cards for you to use. And that's kind of how it goes. Don't do it, guys. Whether it's $100, whether it's $500, whatever it is, your bank account is for you. It's yours. It's not for anybody else to be using and transacting on. It's not legal, and you are actually then participating. And if you are found, you will also be held legally accountable, criminally accountable. We do go after these people. We find them. So don't do it. Don't ruin your future for somebody else's criminal plans. I think that's
Absolutely.
Stop and verify. So really, call the contact center. If someone calls you and they say this is what's happened, practically, go into your cell phone banking or on your app, check if it, just to check. So if whatever transaction they're saying is we've monitored, if it's there, you can actually just hang up, call FNB and ask, were you trying to reach me? Our contact center will then assist you to say, yes, actually we need, we need to check that this transaction was actually you, or we noticed that there's strange, something strange was going on, or we need you to answer something. But at least then you know you've called the bank. You're not giving some random person who could be anybody, pretending to be anybody, that information. So stop and verify.
Super. Thank you very much for that. And then, Rodney, I've got a question to you about what message you would like to share with customers and with Namibians, because we're all concerned about the rising incidence of criminal activities.
I guess the comfort that, we do take this seriously, therefore the immense investment to ensure that our security and security protocols, are up to standard, the systems that we undertake to monitor, specific activity, even internally, staff access, staff activity, access to what systems, access to what information on those particular systems. And where we do flag and find, activities that requires a relook, i.e. potentially suspicious, we actually investigate and we mitigate where we need to mitigate, And although I call out those particular instances, it's few and far between that we do find that. And if we do, we actually deal with it, quite seriously internally as a business. But I think we appreciate and we understand, the concerns that comes with the rising trends of crime, of which fraud is really a subsegment of that, and the impact that it has on our customers. Our customer safety remain our priority, whether it is going to an ATM to withdraw money or sending off, a e-wallet to a loved one, in a distant location. We do take customer safety and the safety of their finances, quite seriously. And at FNB, we continuously look at, how do we enhance our security posture. We have, significant amount of teams that actually, look at what is happening on our systems. We also apply, specific segregation of duties. You make sure that, if the one person confirms that things is in place, that there is actually, a second team that actually assesses and makes sure that that is indeed the case. And then, as I've indicated earlier, we then also get external service providers in to actually come almost as a third layer to come and really check whether we have done what we are supposed to do. But I think from an awareness perspective, Angola has spoken, about the trends that we have seen, and more what we are seeing, is the success that criminals has with regards to social engineering, whether it is getting customers to click on a link and start sharing specific information. They then use that particular information, at some point in time in future to actually, get back to you as the customer and then try to solicit some additional information who, if shared, eventually provides access, to the customer's bank accounts. And many a times we have reminded and asked our customers, do not share your password, do not share your PIN number, do not share your OTP. The bank will never contact you and ask for this particular information because we have the particular information, right in front of us. We would not be calling to ask that particular information from you. And I think, there is some specific key points that we have highlighted, I think twice before sharing, sensitive information. Protect your device. If you really think about the smartphone that you have in your hand, it's actually your bank in your hand. So is there a strong password on your particular device, the lock screen that you have available there? Also, be aware of the risks that you would find on public Wi-Fi. It's easy to go into a space and to be able to say, yeah, the Wi-Fi is free, and you actually access that particular Wi-Fi. You do not have an appreciation of what is some of the vulnerabilities that actually sits on that particular Wi-Fi. The ability for criminals to actually intercept, some of the information that you actually access on that particular public Wi-Fi. And then just, lastly, if customers do get a call, and there is this particular sense of urgency that the customer has fallen victim to anything in specific, I think rather indicate to the caller that you would want to verify this by actually calling the bank. And we are, available for those particular calls in order to assist customers to safeguard, the customers against these particular, being rather successful in using social engineering, giving customers a false sense of urgency, and getting customers to share their particular passcodes, which then results in the criminals actually having access to the customer's account. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you to our panel for sharing. Please, yeah.
Yeah, stop and verify.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it is, as we're hearing more and more, the sense of urgency, the sense of fear that they're driving. And so it's just taking a moment to, when the red flags come up, to just breathe, think, and then verify is our first line of defense. Super. And so now we'd like to hear from you. If you've got any specific questions of our team here that haven't yet been answered, please feel free. This is your opportunity to ask. Anyone?
Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm Hendrina Cagnola from NBC. I actually have two questions. Do the customers get, like if you fall victim, your money being withdrawn and what, do they get refunds from the bank? What type of scams have been reoccurring in the investigations that you have found, or the trends that have been identified? Thank you.
Yes, I'll take that question. So where our systems do pick up early on fraud detection, we freeze those accounts and the clients do get refunds. Some of the social engineering, where they send money to different bank accounts, maybe not the FNB bank account, it is difficult to freeze the money, but the team do speak to other banks and try and freeze it as effectively as possible. I think on the most frequent schemes that we've observed, it is really a whole array of different schemes. Social engineering is one of the top ones. I think it's the one where the clients lose the most money. But it's a combination of digital fraud and violent fraud. So we can't sit here today and tell you it's only your cell phone. Protect your cell phone. Be aware of when you get a phone call. It is also when you visit the ATM, when you swipe at a merchant. It is really all of those items combined. Then I think from a FNB side, we do have a fraud booklet that we publish. And like I said earlier, we want to invite and partner with the public to start sharing, to make the types of fraud schemes more personal, to talk about it and answer questions from the public as well. So that is what you can expect in 2025.
Yeah, so just allow me to just add on the specific refund policy. I mean, so what we're specifically looking at is, and when there has been specific fraud and the customer has fallen victim to it, our investigation would then determine whether that was a fault on the bank. That's step one. If it was a fault on the bank, we refund. If we find that there has been a fault on the part of the bank and the customer, we refund. If we find that there has been a fault on the customer, we then obviously engage with the customer with regards to that particular aspect, and that particular refund is not as straightforward as we refund. I think there is a duty in this regard, for customers to protect themselves. If you pick up that there is movement on your account, you don't contact the bank, you decide to remain quiet for a week, then essentially, you had a duty to actually act on it. You had a duty to make contact with us. And those would be specifically some of the examples that we would take into account when we do consider, the consideration on whether we want to make good to the specific customer, given the specific incident. If you share your card and you share your PIN number, and that comes up in the investigation, essentially you have not, ensured that you protect yourself. There is a specific, a condition around the card that we're giving you with the PIN number that we're giving you. It's on the proviso that you would keep it a secret, that you would be the only one using it. And that's really, what we do take into account when we look into these particular aspects. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Good morning. My name is Rentia from the Confidente. As the panelist was speaking, the criminals, I'm assuming, are being portrayed as being external During your investigations, how many have you found to involve internal or FNB employees? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm so glad you asked it because, thank you. Go take our build and go ahead.
Yeah, so with every investigation that is reported to us, we look inside first and we try and find out, as Rodney said, is there a level of compromise inside the bank? We have extensive audit trails, so every time a staff member clicks on an account or views an account, we know which staff members have used those accounts. So we look at it with professional skepticism to see is there a staff member that could have shared information that could be part of a syndicate. And so most of these cases that have happened, we have not found an internal person working with external criminals.
Yeah, so and I think it's a point that we really want to emphasize that, you know, the ability for staff to actually, you know, move data around is extremely limited. You cannot extract any information from any of our systems and make it available to any external party. We have, you know, the kind of systems that we've put in place to actually filter specific information before it leaves the bank's domains. You know, it's very, very robust. We have teams that specifically monitor that they would put those particular information as and when they found it in quarantine. They would engage risk, they would engage fraud, they would engage compliance to be able to actually get the necessary line approvals for that particular information to be released for external usage. And obviously, you know, when these particular things happen, you then want to understand what's the business reason for that particular information that has been moved. And if it is found above board, the necessary approvals are being given. But if you do find that there was some malicious intent, then obviously as a business, we take that very seriously and we deal with it very seriously.
I think if I can only add one more thing, and Rodney did allude to it in terms of the monitoring and segregation of duties. I'd like to take the opportunity to dispel the myth that everybody in the building can see any and everybody's information. It doesn't happen that way. And individuals who have certain rights to access systems, they have certain rights of what they can do on the system, what they can see on the system, what they are permitted to be interacting with, and they're monitored. So it's not that people are running around and they can just open their computers. We track all activity that's happening across the systems. And I think, thank you very much for asking the question, because in looking at some of the commentary that's out there, I think there is a duty for us to come up for our employees, that they work under very transparent circumstances. Yeah.
Any more questions? Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Martin Injala from the Windhoek Observer. A question for, perhaps clarity for Ms. Nangula. You mentioned that it's illegal to open an account and give access to another person. Maybe you can just clarify, because there are instances where parents do that. So just maybe clarify for us there. The other question I have is, in this case of the pensioner who lost their money, does the bank actually do some sort of education to the customers with such amount of money to sort of not keep everything into one account? Maybe you can just also touch on that. Thank you.
So in terms of the point around the accounts, and then Johanna and Rodney can also build if I don't get it quite correct. What I'm saying, so parents actually should be opening accounts for their children. We have youth accounts, we have student accounts, and so what I'm saying there is that you should not be opening a bank account for somebody else to transact on. It takes away the controls and mechanisms that we have to keep the financial system safe, to make sure that people are not financing highly illegal activities, that organized crime is not able to take place. There are very, very good reasons as for why that's the case. And you speak of parents letting their kids touch their accounts or use their accounts. They also give those passwords to their kids. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's really not worth it. And in these instances, if you've opened an account and handed that access to somebody else, if you can give someone signing authority, that's a different story. I'm talking about you open an account and then you say to the next person, here's the stuff, and then they carry on using your account as though it was you. So it's an impersonation. It's just like somebody saying, hi, I know you're going on vacation to, let me not name countries, to stereotypical country XYZ, can you please carry a package for me? Don't carry the package, you're not going to carry the package, it doesn't end well. It's a similar thing. I don't know if there's anything I should add to that.
So just in terms of when we do open accounts for minors, it is on the basis that it's either the natural parent or a legally appointed guardian. So in that particular regard, we take comfort that the parent or the guardian, legally is allowed to act on behalf of the minor up until the age of 18. We do allow for minors, once they reach the age of 16, with the permission of the parent, to then actually have, access without the parent to the account. Those particular instances would not necessarily be regarded as opening accounts, for illicit or illegal means.
Yeah, and maybe to share a little bit more information, we see members of the public opening accounts and return receive an amount of money for it. Then the other party that receives this detail, whose information is not captured on the bank system, they use it to receive fraudulent money. So that is a fraudulent activity. But the original person that didn't commit the fraud, it's their information on their account. So they become implicated, or they're in trouble with the police. And then it is basically money laundering on which they participate. So it is quite a serious offense.
Okay, and then on the other point around education, we do countless education. And we have definitely been reflecting on, it's not that we don't do enough. Kirsty can probably revert to you afterwards with the actual number. In the last 12 months, how many messages in how many places. We do industrial theatre, we do activations, we do direct communication. There's above-the-line campaigns in multiple media channels, traditional and social. And the question is just, how do we do more? How do we do more? How do we do more? And then I'll show you something when we're not on live, because I don't want to teach criminals something, but it will answer, I think it will help answer a little bit of your question. Okay.
But maybe also on the how do we do more, so we always look at the way we say ABC. But when I say ABC, do you understand ABC, or should we express it differently? So we try and communicate the same topic through different means, different languages, different expressions.
Yeah, and maybe just in terms of specifically pensioners, we do specifically ensure that there is, buckets where we actually indicate that, people that is above a certain age, we actually classify them as potentially vulnerable customers, so that what we effectively saying is that given where we are as a bank and where technology is and access to banks, we take enhanced due regard in terms of that particular set of customers and the kind of education that we do, around that. And once we've undertaken that, the customer then has the optionality in terms of, now that I know, now that I'm better informed, what is the decision that I want to take? And at times what we do find, is that the customer still makes a decision that we're not necessarily comfortable with, but the customer now know the risks of that particular decision and then still proceeds with that particular decision. It is not in any of the cases that we are discussing here today, but this is what we practically at times observe, where a customer walks into a branch, wants to withdraw an excessive amount of cash. We sit down with the customer, we discuss all the options of moving the value differently as opposed to in hard cash. The customer then still insists that I want to withdraw that particular amount of money. We then take out a specific document in which we ask the customer to kindly sign almost an indemnity where the customer now in writing acknowledge the risks, around that. And then the customer, signs that. And that's really the extent, to which we go to try and educate and safeguard our customers. Thank you.
I also want to add on to that before we hand over to the next question. So the marketing team is busy. They do this every year with activations where they go to the regions and they go and speak to customers in local vernaculars. They've just been in the south and they're heading to the north next. And they'll be going into the villages, and we're going to be inviting the media to come and witness what happens, to see the educational process that does happen in people's place of comfort. So it's not only that it's in branches or in the press even, it's sometimes right at their homes or at their community centres to help with that educational process. Next question.
I just wanted to find out, most of these scams actually originate beyond borders or have been ongoing beyond borders before they hit Namibia. First question, how much are FNB branches interlinked with branches beyond in other countries? And secondly, how many of your cases have you found to have been perpetrated from outside Namibia?
Yeah, so I guess we are not able to do any specific transactions between FNB Namibia and FNB South Africa or any other FNB branch in any of the other African subs. You would maybe have noted that recently, the Common Monetary Area has adopted a new way of actually payments to the Common Monetary Area, where if you now want to take any transaction, if you want to do a payment to South Africa, that goes through a foreign exchange rail. So we treat it as a cross-border transaction. You are subjected to specific requirements in terms of, the reason for the payment, the details of that particular payment, and it's on that basis that we would then undertake that particular transaction, into the Common Monetary Area. I think from a card perspective, if you think of cards generally, you are able to actually transact with a card across the world, whether it's walking into a specific business and swiping for the services, or whether you're approaching an ATM in this particular countries and you withdraw specific cash. That is not unique between Namibia and South Africa. Cards in general, depending on the card association that you have, we use Visa. You would be able to actually, go to any Visa-enabled ATM across the world, and you would be able to transact on that particular ATM withdrawing cash or at a point of sale to swipe for that particular service. Not sure whether that gives you the comfort around your question.
Would that perhaps give the user any vulnerability? Being able to transact with your card, because I know I had a relative living in Malaysia, and if they'd used their card more than maybe twice or thrice without notifying the bank, that it would be blocked. But I don't see that happening with my card when I travel.
Yeah, so what we essentially do is, when customers actually travel, it is in the interest of the customer to inform us with regards to this. Depending on the kind of transactions that you do outside of the country, it can potentially then flag on our monitoring systems as suspicious activities, and we would then obviously proceed to see how do we mitigate that. Try to get hold of you so that you can confirm these particular transactions. What at times happen is once we leave the country, we put in another SIM card into our devices, and it becomes a bit difficult, for the bank to actually do that. I think your question is there an opportunity to mitigate some of these particular risks, as and when customers travel? And I think that is a point that we have been deeply reflecting on internally, and there is some specific conversations that we have internally in terms of how can we actually mitigate some of those particular risks and vulnerabilities on behalf of our customers, by not necessarily going and inconveniencing, customers. If you travel, you're in a foreign country, the last thing that you would want is to be stuck where you cannot make a payment because the transaction limit is not necessarily allowing you to do that particular transaction, and that's something that we have been reflecting internally on.
But maybe also I think it's a good question. Many of the attempts on customers' money is not from Namibians, it is cross-border. And what we found is that the criminals have the ability to mask their number. So the number that appears on your mobile device seems like a local number, but they've masked it. And it's actually an international number. So the stop and verify principle is extremely important, especially if somebody phones you and talks about an investment opportunity and they create a sense of urgency, but the market is running, you must get in now. It is really important to keep cool and to stop and verify that information. I guess probably maybe before I get to the percentages, what we also see in digital fraud is we have the ability to look behind documents to who's the author of a document or who's the creator of a document. And sometimes we see the eastern part of the world, not to mention specific countries, but yeah, so the eastern part of the world are really tax savvy and many of the investment frauds is created on that side of the country.
Any more questions? Anything specific? Yes, please.
Does FNB perhaps? Sorry. All right. My name is Sorena. I'm a journalist from Informante. Does FNB perhaps have any figures with regards to how much money has been lost over the financial year in terms of fraud?
Yeah, I don't have that number offhand. Are you asking how much the bank has lost?
Clients of the bank, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have that number on the top of my head at the moment. But I think, many people are touched by fraud. I recently traveled and my cell phone was stolen with my cards on me. So I think criminals look for opportunity. We need to be aware of that all the time.
But I guess as an industry, we are required to keep record of that. As an industry, we're also required to disclose specific information to the regulator. The regulator then obviously takes this particular information, makes assessment from this particular information, and would be engaging with specific, players within the industry where there is some specific reasons to engage. I think the numbers that are floating in the newspapers, those are high numbers. I think if we look at the actual losses, per annum, it would probably not be as alarming as these once-off incidents that is there. And I guess at some point, one probably to consider, what is the kind of information that we actually want to put into the public domain, to also maybe just give that particular assurance. In some of these particular cases, what we sometimes found is, the criminals did have no idea that they would find a pot of gold. It is just by an absolute stroke of luck that they managed to engage you, and you just recently had a large payout, and they are then able to actually, commit a significant value of fraud. But sometimes investigations indicate that they didn't even know what they would find. They were probably quite surprised what they found in the perpetrating of that particular fraud. Thank you.
Maybe a last one, just to add to what Rodney is saying, is be careful of what you post on social media. We also have clients that post on social media they're taking their wife out for dinner for her birthday. And then the criminals, because of what is all the information on social media, they can calculate where you are. If they get your card, you're not at house.
And I'm not the expert here, but just in sitting and listening to some of the conversations that have been had recently, I found it very interesting to hear, while there isn't a number to this, there's so much that's also flagged before crime even happens internally through the systems. And you can't quantify exactly how much money was protected, but there was a lot. A lot of the times things get stopped before they happen, which is great to know. Any other questions? Have we answered everything? Do you feel comfortable? You've got the answers that you need right now. You know, as I said in the beginning of our conversation, we really see you as an ally in getting this information out and helping to protect our customers and our fellow Namibians. So if there's anything that you need to know to be able to share this information in a way that's helpful to our friends, family, and fellow Namibians, please do ask now. And if you want to afterwards, you're welcome to send me an email if there's something else that wasn't answered. We want to work closely with you because we are united in this fight against crime and fraud, and we see you, the media, as our ally in getting this information out there. So if there's any way that we can assist you to help us fight the criminals, please do let us know. Okay, anything else you'd like to add?
No, just thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the engagement, the questions, and if need be, at any point in future, happy to re-engage and provide answers to your burning questions because you are the conduit of helping us inform the public. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And if you'd like to grab something more to eat or have a coffee or stay and chat with us, please feel free. Thanks again.